My name's Alex. I'm 34, and I've always been the kind of guy people describe as reliable. Not flashy, not the life of the party, just reliable. I'm the one who files taxes early, the one who remembers birthdays, the one who makes a budget spreadsheet for fun. I never thought those traits would end up making me the scapegoat of my own family. But here we are. Growing up, I was the invisible middle child. My older brother, Jordan, was the golden boy, varsity sports, endless praise, even when he crashed my dad's car in high school. My younger sister, Lily, was the baby, sweet, spoiled, and completely shielded from consequences. And me? I was just there. Not really praised, not really scolded. I got good grades, helped with chores, got into a decent college, and paid my own way. I didn't complain. I didn't make waves. That was my role. Stay useful, stay quiet. Things started shifting after I graduated. I landed a solid job in finance, moved into a modest apartment, and started building a decent life for myself. But almost as soon as the ink dried on my first paycheck, the requests started rolling in. It began small. Alex, can you spot me $200 for Lily's books? Or, Alex, your dad and I are a little short this month. Can you help with groceries? Every time I helped, I told myself it was temporary. I told myself this was what families did. But it never stopped. Over the years, the asks became bigger, bolder. Jordan decided he wanted to launch a startup. It'll be huge, he promised. You'll get in on the ground floor. I gave him $5,000. He spent it on a trip to Miami and a new gaming setup. Lily wanted to move to a city apartment to be closer to auditions. I co-signed her lease. She stopped paying rent after 3 months. My parents? They refinanced their mortgage twice and still managed to rack up more credit card debt than I could fathom. And every time something broke, figuratively or literally, I was the first call. At first, I justified it. I told myself they just needed time, that I was lucky, and lucky people helped. But then I started noticing the language. Subtle at first, my mom joking, "You're like our little emergency fund," or my dad smirking, "Alex always bails us out." Harmless, right? Except the jokes stopped being jokes. They started feeling like roles carved in stone. I tried to draw boundaries once. 2 years ago, I told my mom I couldn't co-sign another one of Jordan's big ideas. She got quiet, cold. I didn't hear from her for a month. When she finally called, it wasn't to apologize. It was to tell me my dad had thrown out his back and they needed help with medical bills. I caved. Again. But the final straw came a month ago. I had just finished a brutal quarter at work, 12-hour days, not a single weekend off, and I was finally starting to think about putting a down payment on a small condo. It felt huge. Like maybe, finally, I could build something for myself. Then my mom called. She wanted me to co-sign a loan. Again. This time, it was for Lily, who had found herself and wanted to open a boutique crystal shop with a friend she'd met at a weekend retreat. I laughed at first. I thought she was kidding. She wasn't. When I said no, calmly, respectfully, my mom exploded. I'll never forget it. Her voice rose so fast, so sharp, I had to hold the phone away. "You're just a burden we tolerate," she screamed. "You act like you're so noble, but you're just bitter and selfish. We've put up with your judgment for years." There was this silence after that. Heavy. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I just stared at the floor, the phone pressed against my ear like it might apologize for her. I ended the call without a word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't write a long, angry email. I just started packing. No dramatic confrontation. No slammed doors. I just left, took a few days off work, loaded my things into the back of my car, and disappeared. I didn't tell them where I was going. I didn't check in. I just turned off my phone, booked a short-term rental in a quiet town a few hours away, and tried to remember what peace felt like. The first few days were strange. There was a kind of hollow quiet in the air, like something had been cut out of me. I kept checking my phone out of habit, only to remember it was off. My brain kept anticipating guilt, texts from my mom, voicemails from Lily, calls from Jordan trying to smooth things over. But there was nothing, just silence. And then, exactly 2 weeks later, the silence broke. I had turned my phone back on for work. There were dozens of missed calls and messages. Most of them were from numbers I didn't recognize. But one stood out, a text from Jordan. Why was the mortgage declined? No greeting, no context, no apology, just that. I stared at it for a full minute, heart thudding. Not because I was surprised, but because it confirmed what I already knew. My name was still on their paperwork. My credit had still been holding up the fragile tower of their financial chaos. They hadn't even thought about me until the foundation cracked. I typed back one sentence. Asked the family that tolerated me. Then I turned the phone off again. And this time, it stayed off. But that was only the beginning. Because when people like that realize the person they've leaned on isn't there to catch them anymore, they don't fall quietly. They panic. They scramble. And they start revealing exactly who they are. The next time I turned my phone on, 3 days later, it practically vibrated itself off the counter. Missed calls. Voicemails. Messages stacked so high it froze my screen for a moment. My hands hovered over the screen, debating whether to even look. But curiosity won. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I just read the texts. Lily texted, "Where are you?" Mom's freaking out. She said you sabotaged the mortgage. Jordan texted, "Dude, you couldn't give us a heads up? Now everything's on me." Mom texted, "I don't know what's gotten into you, but you're destroying this family." Dad texted, "This is bigger than you, Alex. Grow up." Mom again, "You're acting like a child. Stop pouting and call me." And then came the ones that made me stop scrolling entirely. Mom said, "I raised you. I made you who you are. And this is how you repay me." Jordan texted, "You've always been jealous. Admit it. You like watching us struggle." Lily texted, "Guess you were never really part of this family anyway." That one hit harder than I expected. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. They weren't looking for answers. They were lashing out, flailing in the absence of the scapegoat they depended on for too long. And the more I ignored them, the more their true selves surfaced. Later that week, I got an email from the bank, purely procedural. The mortgage had defaulted. Payments had lapsed months ago. Apparently, my parents had been living off extensions and partial payments, assuming I'd cover the gaps eventually. I didn't realize how bad it had gotten because, of course, they never told me. That same day, I got a text from my aunt, my mom's sister. We weren't close, but she had always been decent to me. The message was short. "I don't know exactly what happened, but I just want you to know, you don't owe anyone anything." I sat with that for a long time. You don't owe anyone anything. No one in my immediate family had ever said that to me. Not once. A week passed. Then two. The silence was eerie, but peaceful. I focused on work. I started jogging again. I even signed a lease on a new apartment, nothing flashy, just a quiet space with sunlight and a little balcony where I could drink coffee in the morning without anyone asking for anything. I thought that might be the end of it. That maybe, just maybe, they'd get the hint. But entitlement doesn't retreat quietly. The next escalation came on a Sunday evening. I was cleaning out my email inbox when I saw it, an event invitation. Lily's Crystal Boutique grand opening. I laughed, out loud. Not because it was funny, but because it was insane. After everything, she had still gone through with it. The venue address was some overpriced space in a trendy part of town, and the RSVP link included a registry for donations to help fund her spiritual journey. I closed the email. The next morning, I got another message from Jordan. "We're trying to hold this family together, Alex. But you've made it impossible. Mom's not sleeping. Dad's thinking about getting a second job. Lily's crying every day. Is that what you wanted?" He really thought that would work. Guilt. The old reliable lever. But it didn't. I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. For the first time in my life, I wasn't propping up something broken just because it was familiar. Still, I wasn't naive. I knew they wouldn't let me walk away without one final stunt. And sure enough, it came the week after Lily's boutique opened. My manager at work pulled me aside. Said she'd gotten a strange call from someone claiming to be my concerned parent. Said I was in distress, not making rational choices, and possibly being manipulated by outside influences. I stared at her, stunned. "That's completely false," I said. She nodded. "I figured. But we're required to log the concern and follow up." After that, I changed my number. I updated every password, removed myself from every shared document and account I could think of. I even pulled my name from my parents' mortgage officially. Turns out they had forged a few things when they added me the second time. A lawyer friend helped me fix that. That should have been the end. But 2 weeks later, there was a knock at my door. And when I opened it, I found my mom standing there. Tired, pale, but not apologetic. Just waiting. She didn't say hello, didn't ask if I had a minute, didn't even bother to make it sound like this visit was out of concern or love. She just looked past me, at my hallway, at the apartment I had painstakingly put together piece by piece over the last month, and said, So this is where you've been hiding. I stood there for a moment, one hand still on the doorknob, unsure whether to shut the door or let her speak. I hadn't seen her in person since the day she'd screamed that I was a burden. Now, standing under my doorway like some kind of ghost from a past I was still trying to bury, she looked smaller. Older, but not softer. "Mom," I said flatly. "Why are you here?" She stepped forward, boldly, like she still had every right to just walk into my life. Into my space. "We need to talk. You can't just run away from your family every time things get difficult." I almost laughed. "I didn't run away," I said. "I walked away. Quietly. After being screamed at, again, for setting the smallest boundary." She rolled her eyes, like I was being dramatic. Like none of this was serious. "You've always taken everything so personally, Alex," she said, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "You twist things. We were upset. People say things in the heat of the moment. You know we love you." I stared at her, feeling a coldness settle in my chest. It was the kind of cold that doesn't come from winter air. It comes from years of being gaslit, dismissed, used. "You said I was a burden. That you tolerated me. That wasn't heat of the moment. That was truth. Yours." Her lips pressed together. She wasn't expecting resistance. She had come here thinking I'd fold, just like always. Then she sighed, dramatically. "Look, I didn't come here to argue. We're in a tight spot. The mortgage is overdue, the bank's threatening foreclosure, and your father, he's not handling the stress well. Jordan's too busy trying to find investors for his new project, and Lily is selling overpriced rocks out of a strip mall," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "See? That attitude is exactly the problem. You always think you're better than the rest of us." I stepped fully into the doorway now, not letting her inside. "No, I think I've worked hard, and I've been responsible. That doesn't make me better. That makes me exhausted." For the first time since she arrived, she looked uncertain, hesitant. "You really won't help us?" she asked quietly, almost stunned. I looked at her, my mother, who used my name like a debit card and called it love, who never asked how I was doing unless it somehow tied back to what I could do for someone else. "I already did," I said. "For 15 years. She didn't like that. The moment cracked, and the mask slipped. "We're your family, Alex," she snapped, her voice rising again. "You don't just abandon family because things aren't convenient." That was it. The word. Convenient. I stepped back just enough to signal what was coming. "I didn't abandon anyone," I said quietly. "I just finally stopped playing a role I never agreed to. And if you're here hoping I'll pick up where I left off, fix everything again, you should probably leave before you embarrass yourself." Her mouth opened, then closed. For a second, she looked like she wanted to scream, but she didn't. She just stood there, blinking rapidly, like maybe this wasn't how she imagined it would go. "I don't have anywhere else to go," she finally whispered. And for a heartbeat, something inside me wavered. Not because I believed her, but because for a second, I was 10 years old again, overhearing arguments I wasn't supposed to hear. Watching bills pile up. Watching my mom cry at the kitchen table, thinking no one could see. But I wasn't 10 anymore. I was 34. And I had seen what happened every time I gave in. I nodded slowly. "I'm sorry for that. I really am. But that's not my burden to carry anymore." Then I closed the door. And I stood there, hand on the knob, while the silence thickened on the other side. I thought maybe she'd knock again, or scream, or curse me through the door. But she didn't. She just walked away. Or so I thought, until a few hours later, when I checked my email. There it was. A forwarded message. Subject line: "Urgent financial misconduct by family member, sent to my workplace's HR department." And the sender? My brother. I stared at the screen for a long time. At first, I didn't even process what I was seeing. My brain couldn't compute the sheer audacity. Jordan had actually filed a formal complaint to my company's HR department, claiming that I was involved in fraudulent activities and financial misconduct tied to family funds. Funds that, mind you, I had been covering for them for over a decade. His email was dramatic, laced with just enough vague terminology to sound serious. Misappropriation, deceptive financial manipulation, breach of fiduciary responsibility. It was clear he didn't understand half the words he used, but it was also clear what he was trying to do. He wanted to ruin me, or at the very least, scare me into submission. The rest of the email was a mess of screenshots, none of which actually proved anything. In fact, most of them were just bank transfers from my own accounts to theirs. No context, no explanation, just raw data dumped like it meant something. But that didn't matter, because Jordan knew one thing. In corporate America, perception is power. A single accusation, even a baseless one, can cast a shadow long enough to wreck a career. And mine was something I had built, brick by brick, without shortcuts, without a safety net. It was all I had. I didn't panic. Not at first. I forwarded the email to my personal lawyer, Danielle, a friend from college who had gone into corporate law and owed me a few favors. She responded within the hour. This is textbook defamation. Keep everything. Don't respond directly. Let me handle it. And I did. For 2 weeks, I stayed quiet. HR did their due diligence, as expected. I was called in for a routine discussion where I calmly explained that I had been financially supporting my family for years, and now, after cutting them off, they were retaliating. I offered bank records. I offered screenshots of the texts. I even showed them a copy of the message from my mom that read, "You're just a burden we tolerate." My manager, bless her, didn't even try to hide her disgust. "I've never seen anything this manipulative in my career," she said after the meeting. But it didn't end there. Because Danielle, my lawyer, wasn't content with just clearing my name. She went after them. We filed a cease and desist for defamation. We included a list of all the instances they had tried to damage my reputation. Jordan's HR email, my mom's fake call to my workplace about my mental instability, even Lily's social media posts that subtly implied I had stolen money from her spiritual fund. Danielle wrapped it all up in a tight little package, and we sent it out via certified mail with legal letterhead and tracking. I didn't expect them to respond, but they did. Boy, did they. First came the crying voicemails, from my mom, of course. "Alex, we didn't mean for it to go this far. You're really going to sue your own family? We're struggling. We were just trying to get your attention." Then Jordan texted me, "You're seriously threatening legal action? You're insane. You used to be cool. Now you're just a corporate robot who forgot who helped him grow up." The irony was staggering. I forgot who helped me. I paid Jordan's rent for 4 years. I bailed him out when he maxed out 3 credit cards in college. I helped him buy his first car, and then his second one when he crashed the first drunk driving and begged me not to tell mom. I'd covered more for him than I had spent on myself in the last decade. And I was the one who forgot? But the final blow, the one that finally snapped whatever thread was left between us, came when Lily showed up. Yes, showed up. At my office. She waited in the building's cafe, apparently, and when I came down to grab lunch, there she was, wearing some gauzy pastel dress, holding a mason jar full of pink quartz crystals and looking like she had just come from a yoga retreat. "Alex," she chirped, too loud, too forced. "Can we talk?" I didn't want to make a scene. I pulled her aside, out of view. "Lily, what are you doing here?" I asked, voice low. She blinked innocently. "I just want to understand why you're being so aggressive. We're family. There's no need for lawyers. You know how sensitive mom is. You're hurting her." That word again. Hurting. Not protecting myself. Not setting boundaries. Hurting. "You're not here to talk," I said. "You're here to manipulate. Just like always." She looked offended. "I came in peace." I nodded to the crystals in her hand. "What's that supposed to do? Heal me into giving you another loan?" Her smile cracked. "You're being cruel." "No," I said. "I'm being clear." I turned to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. "You'll regret this," she hissed. Family doesn't forget betrayal. That's when I realized they really saw me as the betrayer. Not Jordan, who tried to sabotage my career. Not mom, who called me a burden. Not Lily, who tried to guilt me with spiritual nonsense after stealing thousands in unpaid rent. Me, because I'd stopped enabling them. I shook her off, walked away, didn't look back. 2 months passed. The cease and desist did its job. The emails stopped. The calls went silent. My HR team formally closed the investigation and offered a public clarification to my department that I had been cleared of all false claims. My manager even pulled me into her office and said, "For what it's worth, you've handled this with more dignity than most people twice your age." I started sleeping better, eating better, living better. Then, one evening, I got a letter in the mail. From the bank. The mortgage had defaulted. Foreclosure was moving forward. My childhood home, the place where I scraped my knees, the place I had painted with my dad in 5th grade, the place I had cried after every heartbreak, was going on the market. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel vengeance. I felt peace. Because finally, it wasn't my problem to fix. I had warned them. I had tried. And when they chose entitlement over empathy, Manipulation over honesty. They lost the last person still holding the structure together. A week later, I visited the house. It was empty. The windows were boarded. The grass had grown wild. The paint on the porch was peeling. But I wasn't sad. I walked up to the mailbox, dropped in a letter addressed to no one in particular, and walked away. Inside the envelope was a photo of a sign I now kept on my desk at work. It read, "You're not required to set yourself on fire to keep others warm." I don't know where they are now, and I'm okay with that, because I finally chose me, and I didn't look back. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.